All right, so for page 2, we're going to flip page 1 over. And we want to make sure that the hinge attachment, the edge where we're going to attach our hinge, is going to face to the right. Our first piece is the outer double flaps. This is actually going to be cut from one piece of card. The first cut is going to be 10 1/4 inches by 7 inches. Then you're going to cut this piece in half. And then you're going to have two pieces that measure 7 inches by 5 1/8 inch. You're going to score each piece at a 1/2 inch, creating a hinge, and then at an 1/8 inch, creating a gusset. You're going to do the same thing for both pieces. Once that's done, you can go ahead and fold and crease your score lines. And you can see here that it's creating an 1/8 inch gusset. When that's done, you can get a corner punch like I'm doing here and just round out your corners, or any type of punch. Then you're going to flip these over and you're going to run adhesive tape on the outside of your 1/2 inch hinges. Once your hinges are taped, you can go ahead and adhere them to your base page. So you're going to take your first one, you're going to adhere the hinge to the left edge of your base page. You're going to take the opposite one and adhere it to the right side of your base page. And once that's done, it's going to look like this. All right, so moving on to the next step. All right, so for your inner double flaps, your first cut, your first piece of card, is going to be one large piece. This measures 10 inches by 5 1/2 inches. You're going to cut this piece in half. That's at 5 inches. So these pieces are going to measure 5 1/2 by 5 inches. You're going to score each of these at a 1/2 inch each. And then you can go ahead and round out your corners. All right, so the next step is to run adhesive tape over the outside of your hinges. And then you're going to take these pieces and we're going to adhere them to the inside of the outer flaps. So you're going to adhere this piece to the right edge of the inside of the outer flap. You want to make sure that you're not adhering it over your score line. You just want to be next to it. And once that's done, it should look like this. All right, and now what you do to one side, you're going to do to the other. So adhere this 1/2 inch hinge to the inside of the outer flap. All right, moving on to the magnetic closures. You're going to need 2 pieces of card. And you are going to cut these 2 pieces to 2 1/8 inches by 1 1/4 inches. Then you're going to score them at a 1/2 inch and then at an 1/8 inch. You can go ahead and fold and crease your score lines. And once again, that's going to create an 1/8 inch gusset like this. And then you can choose to round your edges like I'm doing. And once that's done, again, what you do to one, you do to the other. All right, those are done. So I like to use either glue or I like to use really heavy-duty adhesive tape, in this case score tape. So instead of using glue this time, I am going to use some score tape. And I'm going to put it on the outside edge All right, once that's done, we're going to go ahead and adhere these two pieces. So to adhere these pieces, what we want to do is center it on both of your flaps. So what I do is I'm going to fold it over so that the hinge is facing down like it's supposed to. I'm going to cup it on the edge of the small inner flap and then center it. And then I'm going to go ahead and press it down onto the bottom outer flap. And what you do to one side, you make sure that you do to the other. All right, moving on to the magnet placement. You need a sharp tool. So you're going to take your tool, and on the outside of your closure, you're going to poke a hole about a 1/2 inch back from the center left edge. And you're going to get a pencil, and you're going to circle the hole on the inside of a closure and the outside of the inner flaps. Again, what you do to one side, you do to the other. Poke a hole, open up the closure, circle the hole on the inside, circle the hole on the outside of the inner flaps. For the top and the small bottom flaps, it all starts again as one large piece of card. So these two pieces put together make one cut, which is 10 5/8 inch by 6 inches. Then you're going to cut this piece at 7 inches. So now this top flap is 7 inches by 6 inches. The small bottom flap now measures 6 inches by 3 5/8 inch. All right, for the top flap, you're going to score this piece at a 1/2 inch and then at 1/8 inch, creating that 1/8 inch gusset. Once that's done, you can go ahead and round out your corners. And then go ahead and run adhesive tape over the outside of your 1/2 inch hinge. You're going to take this piece and you're going to want to center it on your outer flaps. It's about 1 inch on each side, so you can go ahead and measure the inch on either side. And then you're going to take your piece and then you can line it up. It'll be easier that way. So I'm going to flip this over, and then you can see that I'm going to take my hinge and I'm going to tuck it in underneath both of those flaps, curl it over, align it, and then adhere it. And the theme is what you do to one side, you do to the other. So once the top flap is done, we're going to be moving on to the small bottom flap. So for the small bottom flap, we've already folded and creased our hinges. And then run adhesive tape on the outside of it. And you're going to do the same thing. You're going to tuck this piece underneath both of those outer flaps, and then you're going to align the sides with the sides of the top flap. And once that's done, it should look like this. Now, I always like to run over my hinges with my bone folder so that it sticks a little better. And then that's all your pieces. So once that's all assembled, we can go ahead and move on to the decorative paper placement. I like to start with the inside and work my way out. So let's start with the base page. This piece of deco paper measures 7 3/4 by 6 3/4. You can go ahead and center and adhere that to your base page. And the next, we're going to do the outer double flaps. You're going to need 4 pieces of deco paper measuring 6 3/4 inches by 4 1/4 inch. You can adhere the 2 pieces to the inside. And then you can go ahead and adhere the other 2 pieces to the outside. And once that's done, we're going to move on to the small inner flaps and the magnet attachment step. All right, so for your magnet attachment, first you're going to run adhesive tape over the circled hole on the inner double flaps. Then you're going to attach your magnets. I'm using teeny tiny ones. All right, so you're going to attach your magnets again. And then we are going to move on to the decorative paper. So I have 2 sizes. This one is 5 1/4 by 4 1/4. But then on the inside, I decided to have a photo mat and a journaling tag. So that this is 4 1/4 by 4, and this is 4 1/4 by 1 1/8. You can go ahead and adhere your decorative paper to the outside of your inner double flaps. And then you're going to attach the second set of magnets to the first set. You're going to run adhesive tape over the circled hole on the inside of your closures. And then go ahead and close those over the magnet and reopen them. Your magnets are stuck. All right, so you can adhere your decorative paper to the inside of your inner double flaps. All right, so moving on to the next step, we're going to go to the magnet closures themselves. You're going to need 4 pieces of decorative paper. You're going to cut these pieces to 1 5/8 by 1 3/8 inch. So for the closures, I like to tape the center, as you can see here, and then I like to run glue over the outside edges, just to make sure that it's going to hold, since there's going to be so much wear and tear. So you can go ahead and adhere all of those 4 pieces to your closures. And just like that, done. All right, so for your top flap, you need 2 pieces of decorative paper. These measure 6 1/8 inch by 5 3/4 inch. You can go ahead and adhere the first one to the inside of your top flap. And you're going to close your top flap. You're going to take your second piece. You're going to run a teeny tiny bit of adhesive tape over the back of it. You're going to take this piece and you're going to temporarily attach it to the outside of the top flap. Fold up that small bottom flap, and then you're going to need a swing tab. You're going to align your swing tab or line it up to where you want it. Position it. And then you're going to get a pencil and you're going to trace the hole of your swing tab onto the temporarily attached paper. Go ahead and detach that and punch out that hole. I'm using a crocodile. Once that hole's punched, you can go ahead and align both holes of the swing tab and the paper. You're going to insert your brad, and then you can go ahead and open the prongs of the brad on the back. And then run adhesive tape all over the back of this and adhere it to the outside of your top flap. For the small bottom flap, we're going to need 2 pieces of deco paper. These measure 5 3/4 by 2 3/4. You can adhere the first piece to the inside of your small bottom flap, and the last one on the outside. And it should look like this when it's done. Only we want to put the flaps on the inside, so you close up the left and right flap, put the top flap over it, and now it's done.